It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is What Made the Cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
And this portion of the show brought to you by an incredible selection of Kia, Subaru, Chevy, Jeep, Dodge, or Ram, and now Mitsubishi in the family of Doug Smith dealerships in American Fork, Spanish Fork, and in Linden. Nobody knows cars like Doug. And nobody knows the QB battle in a freshman starting situation like Riley Nelson, friend of the program, and, of course, former BYU and Utah State quarterback. What's up, Riles? How you doing, man?
Hey, glad to be with you guys. Can we get to real fall and stop with all this 98-degree nonsense?
Oh, my gosh.
Other than baking out here, I'm ready for it to be real fall.
My car said 103 today when I parked, and I went, that's not right. That can't be right. And then I was like, yeah, it's dang hot. It took a while to get. My real question is, Riley, are the Nelson boys undefeated this year in football?
Yeah, we took care of business 27-7 week one. So here's the biggest lesson learned, guys, and that's why I got heat on the mind. We had a lull in the third quarter, got caught on a reverse. Otherwise, we had the clamps down. We also had a sluggish second series of the second half. But guys, that would have been like time of day, like 12:30. I didn't have a pop-up tent. I didn't have a pop-up tent for those boys. I didn't have cold rags. I didn't have a mister. So that's on coaching, right? First place you got to look is in the mirror. So you better bet you when we go up to Fremont this week, who, by the way, Fremont took care of business too. So it's going to be a big battle for the 7-year-olds up on Fremont High. We're going to have pop-up tents. We're going to have those you guys seen those fans you can stick on top of a 5-gallon bucket?
Oh, yeah.
That Mr. We're going to have those. We're going to have ice rags. We ain't going to let the sun get us. So live and learn, but the boys are locked in, had a great week one performance. And as you all know, the sign of a true you know how good you are or how good you can be by the improvements you make from week one to week two. So that's what the Woods Cross 7-year-olds are focused on this week.
Did you get a hold of some Fremont's film for Scout this week?
No comment.
Yeah, no, exactly.
All right, moving on.
The Ute Conference, I'm not actually quite sure what the rules of engagement are, but we'll say this. I owe it to those boys to have them prepared, and the best way to be prepared is to know what you're up against. So
my favorite part is just imagining like the Fremont 7-year-olds last week. They have no idea. They're just playing football, and there are like 9 people in the stands with meta glasses on.
And there's some guy in a trench coat.
And they're all just filming the whole thing.
His last
Riley.
name's Stallions.
If you want to get the full update on how the Woods Cross 7-year-olds in the Ute Conference are doing, you can get it right here on the KSL Sports Zone every week. Riley, I'm sure you've been watching this whole back and forth. Look, it's interesting. Every quarterback battle at any of these schools, even if their quarterback is named, like even the QB2 job up at Utah, where Kyle is being asked every week about whether or not if Isaac Wilson's going to be edging out Bert Ficklin. I mean, it's kind of fascinating because it's these lives of these young men that they're grinding, they're playing ball. How surprised were you when you heard that BYU named a true freshman in Bear Bachmeier? I mean, it seemed like it was after the first kind of trimming down of names, it was like, oh boy, I think they're trending that direction, and they went with it.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is the biggest surprise came when everything around the Jake Retzlaff situation hit the news, right? Like, and in the biggest thing is I've reflected on this, and we've gotten to this point, and as excited as I am to watch Bear play, but the reality is quarterback depth is a thing of the past. And I'd say even for the Blue Bloods, with the transfer portal and how in-demand a quarterback is, I mean, at every level of football, as goes the quarterback, so goes the team. And so they are the absolute most pursued and hottest commodity. So to keep, a second or a third high in-demand commodity on your team is impossible for pretty much every program across the country. So once you lost your returning, your incumbent in Retzlaff, kind of all bets were off, and it was let the best man win, and you were dealing with a bunch of prospects, meaning guys in your depth chart, but meaning your evaluation was a prospective evaluation, meaning that this was 3 guys at BYU that BYU hadn't seen suit up for them and lead that offense. So you're making a prospective evaluation on any of these 3 guys, and they could have been any one. And to Bear's credit, he came in, he didn't let experience or the fact that these other guys have some starts under their belt discourage him or alter his mindset in any way. He went after the job, and as has been proven and commented on by Roderick and Coach Sitake and all these guys, like he proved it. He went out and earned it, and so I'm excited for him to get his shot against Portland State.
Like Bear, you had a chance to play as a true freshman. It didn't happen immediately, but eventually you did get that opportunity. I'm curious, what were the challenges you faced as a true freshman quarterback making that transition from high school to FBS football?
Yeah, I'd probably say the biggest challenges for me, this is a funny one. I didn't call protections. My center took care of protections in high school, and then I had protections on me. And so that was my biggest mental load. The quicker adjustments were like, oh, the windows are smaller, and you got to throw with anticipation. I already knew. Like, I went to these Elite 11 camps and everything as junior and senior in high school, and Matthew Stafford was my grade, and so like I went out there, I goes, oh, that's what arm strength looks like, right? So like it was very clear to me early on that I had to be able to throw with anticipation. I had to be able to throw with timing and accuracy, and so adjusting to smaller windows and greater speed by going from high school to pros wasn't a big a deal for me. I think Bears might be similar, not in the same vein that it's more about accuracy and timing, but rather he's a physical specimen. You just look at the way that he's built. You look at his strength and his raw athletic ability. I think he's covered that gap through his natural tools. And obviously has done the work to be able to get through progressions and still throw accurately enough to earn the confidence of Coach Roderick. But to me, it was the mental load. And I would dare say that that's going to be the same thing for Bear. He's going to get into game. Now, this first week won't be so bad, or this first week one won't be so bad because your game prep is about 10 days, right? It's bye-week preparation, meaning that camp ends and it's not and you don't come out on Monday starting the game plan. Rather, it's normally you start somewhere around that Tuesday or Wednesday before. So right now, like, they're into Portland State prep already. And so it won't feel the flood of information that he's going to have to intake, synthesize, consume, and then apply is not going to be as bad for week one. But once the season gets going into week 2, week 3, and week 4, that's when the biggest adjustment period will come for him. And that's where we'll see really what he's made of.
When you talk about they've been really high on how this guy's been able to process things, and how difficult is it when they say, oh, he already knows the playbook front and back? Obviously it's different program to program, but when Roderick on Monday mentioned, hey, he knows the playbook, and to do that in the time that he did it, not having a spring under his belt, how impressive is that? Or is it something that's like, no, that's something that kind of every really good quarterback could do?
The biggest, if you can arm your quarterback with one tool, it's confidence. And quarterbacks, whether they're consuming the media or not, it comes back to you because you're a media lightning rod. And so while Bear might not actually, seek out the interview or read the comments or watch the interview from Roderick, like, it's going to get back to him what Roderick said about him. And so he's smart to say that. Here's the thing. The term knows the playbook is relative, right? Like, and without an incumbent starting quarterback, that playbook it's not as comprehensive as it would have been under Retzlaff. Let's say that. Just like for me, the playbook that we ran, and even though I was the backup to Max and all that stuff, the thing that we went in those first couple weeks in 2010 after having graduated, Max and Harvey and Dennis and Austin and Andrew George, and like graduating all these guys in 2009 that had so many starts under the, not to mention all the starts on the offensive line. So we knew the entire playbook going into week one in 2010, but make no mistake, it was not the same playbook that we ended, in the Las Vegas bowl game against Oregon State with those previous guys. So here's how I interpret those comments. He knows every play that will be put into the game plan against Portland State, and they feel confident in his ability to execute on that. But does that mean that over the course of his career at BYU, he's going to continue to run those same plays? Absolutely not. The play plan will expand. They will put modifications. They'll put adjustments, iterations on it. And so I take that comment, I guess, with the grain of salt.
How do his coaches balance patience with him learning the game on the job with, performance? Because he could have some ups and downs. How long is the leash How good does he have to be to maintain that position? What are some of the expectations they would have on a true freshman quarterback as opposed to a more veteran player?
Yeah, that's a tough question, JJ, because I think patience, if it's not already extinct, I think it's definitely endangered as far as being something that even is allowed to exist in the ecosystem of P4 high-level college football. Like it definitely doesn't exist for coaches, for head coaches, for coordinators, and by secondary effects or as a byproduct, it really doesn't exist for players too. Like the demand is on you to do it, and I gotta tell you guys, like Arizona, we saw it in our own conference. Arizona State, granted, he was a redshirt, but also, if I'm not mistaken, Bear is a little bit older, right? Isn't he 19?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so he's a little bit over. I guess what I'm saying is, like, if Sam Levitt can take ASU to the playoffs, like the same expectation should be on BYU. I guess, and here's the other thing: if I'm another member on that team, how am I buying? How can I buy in if the coaches tell me, well, guys, since we lost Retzlaff, we were going to compete for a conference championship, and now that we're here, we're going to shift down and we're just going to take moral victories. Like, it doesn't work that way. And so I don't think you might have maybe a little bit in the first couple of weeks, but after that, like, we got a conference championship to win, baby, so we got to roll. And so you're either the one driving this bus, and if you're not the one that we trust to drive it, then we got to put someone else in who can. So they might show some more patience, or they might give that language, but it's my hope as an alumni and one who wants to see BYU football strive for greatness. I hope that he doesn't have any more patience or any longer leash than any other player would have.
Riley Nelson, former BYU quarterback, former Utah State quarterback, and you had a battle with Jake Heaps, of course, too, that was highly publicized. And, kind of walk us through how much of that kind of battle that went back and forth and it kind of went between starts for guys and how much that affects like the whole locker room in that moment too, because it has to wear on the team when you're kind of doing this back and forth thing and not figuring out who the guy is exactly from week to week.
Yeah, it's going to be much easier to manage that, like, rather than doing what we did, which, by the way, for the first two games, so against Washington and against Air Force, we went every other series. And then we got into week 3 against Florida State, and we were going – and then I think there we switched off quarters. I think I played the first, he played the second. I started the third and then got hurt, which it was just – the team is going to be much better off. Like, it's better to go with Bear and see him in week 1 and week 2 and decide that with giving him the full game, it's going to be much easier to see or not whether or not he's the dude. And if he's the guy, it will become much more readily apparent than it would be if, it was a Hillstead Bachmeier trading off series or quarters or starts or whatever. So I think this is an overall positive. They've eliminated distraction. That experiment's been run on different levels across different programs across the country. Including through my own experience 15 years ago at BYU, and anywhere that it's been tried, it's not really been successful. So the closest thing you can get to it is I like to point to the 2006 Florida team where Chris Leak was the main starter. He's the main, but they gave Tebow third down, fourth down, and red zone packages. And that's the only way two quarterbacks can work, is if one quarterback is being used more as a specialty package player. But to try a guy in and out of the huddle and have a different guy calling the actual plays and having command of the offense, it's just not how football works. It's just not how human leadership works. We're animals after all, and no pack of animals is used. You don't see it anywhere in nature where there's two leaders. There's always one guy that the pack's supposed to look to, and it's the same thing with quarterbacks.
Could you see BYU leaning into the run a little bit more, especially with L.J. Martin back there, and the fact that Bear Bachmeier is athletic and can run to kind of take the pressure off of him from having to make, a lot of big, tough throws in tough situations? Or do you think A-Rod's going to do what he's always done?
Well, it's funny you say do what he's always done. I look back and I was like, I don't know, guys. Do you think Zach and Jaron have the numbers that they have if they don't have Tyler Algier in the backfield that they're handing the rock to?
Absolutely.
Like, I don't think so. This BYU offense, when it's been good, has always had a balanced attack. I talked about that 2009 team. Does Austin and Dennis and Max have the production that they do if they don't have Harvey holding it down, that's averaging 6 yards per carry in the backfield, right? Even going to different coordinators. And so absolutely. And then the other thing is, we remember, we just have our memories are weighted a little bit more towards the more exciting plays, which tend to be the longer pass plays. But I remember calling those games and being amazed at doing the stat sheet as we're doing the post game at the balance and evenness between run and play pass calls. And I got to tell you, if ever it gets more out of whack, and it's going to end up, so they're going to run anywhere from 70, 80 plays, and it's going to be somewhere from 35 to 40 running attempts and somewhere from 30 to 35 passing attempts. Like that's what we've seen for Roderick for 5 years now, right? And if ever it got skewed one way or the other, meaning that if ever the passing attempts were down around 20, that normally was good because that means you're physically dominating up front and you're going more secure. But let's talk the other way. If ever the passing attempts were above 40, maybe we can get your stat guys on this, but I would venture to say that in the Roderick era, if in games where the pass attempts exceeded 40 pass attempts, I bet BYU's under 500 in those games. So long answer to your question, JJ, that I think they do what they always done, and that's strive for balance. And start with the run game, start with establishing a physical presence, and then go from there.
What do coaches do when that freshman struggles? I say inevitably, but who knows what a version of a struggle means for a guy who's getting a true freshman start, going into the Big 12. I mean, that's a lot to ask for somebody, but what is the thing that you want to see from a coaching staff when that kid is under duress or is under pressure, not just within the game, but I'm just saying like when the confidence does take a hit?
Yeah, so you say from the coaches. Everything does start with the coach because the coaches set the tone, but hopefully they've created or fostered a culture of leadership that enables players to step up and lead their units. So at each individual position group, and then on the offensive, defensive, and special team side of the ball, you will have players, rather, not necessarily coaches, but you have players that step up and they go to their position group or they go to their side of the football and they say, listen, just like any one of our brothers, if they were having a rough day, he's having a rough day. That means we got to do our part, right? If we've got anything extra to give, you got to give it, right? And you got to do your job, and you got to do your job to the best because we got to rally around our guy. And when I was a leader, it wasn't necessarily because you don't want that guy to become in your mind a weak set or a mindset. That's just the way football works. Like nobody in the history, even the greats of the greats, don't come out and throw for, they're not 33 for 40 for 425 yards. They have some games where they throw for 187. They have some where they throw for 400. But the ultimate point is to win. And the best teams that I've ever been a part of, and the best teams that I observe in each of those three phases, that they step up and they make up for when one of those teams, when one player or one of those sides of the ball experiences an ebb, one of the other two phases of the game steps up and makes up for whatever might be lacking on any given Saturday. And that's not going to be constant from week to week, but rather, and truth be told, we saw this in last year's team that went 11-2. Sometimes the offense held it together, but like that SMU game, it's like, all right, boys, we ain't going to get much more than 17, 20 points. So we gotta do our part. And they did. I look at that Kansas State game. I mean, Kansas State game we were kind of firing all cylinders. So that's a little bit of a bad example. But you know what I mean? It seems like at different points through the course of that tremendous 11-2 season last, we had the special teams winning some games for us, the defense winning some games for us, and the offense winning some games for us. And that's really what you strive for. And the nature of football, I don't mean to end on a negative note, but the nature of the football is, if the other phases are struggling and you got a freshman in there that tries to step up and falls short, that's just the nature of the game. You try and learn from it and come back that much better the next week.
Riley, we appreciate it, man. Riley Nelson, former BYU and Utah State quarterback. Appreciate the insights as we try to wrap our heads around what a season should look like from a true freshman starting for BYU in game one. It's never happened. So we're looking forward to this thing. And we'll dip in again in the future here. We're going to keep our eyes in the local newspapers to see what type of scandals pop up from any kind kind of video game.
Alleged.
Sorry.
Yeah, good luck to the Woods Cross Scout team.
There you go. Riles,
Appreciate
it, man. There you go. There's Riley Nelson.